Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kay Royal and Paul Breitbart.
Not live from the Global Privacy Assembly, this is the second episode from Jersey, or actually about Jersey, about the Global Privacy Assembly. We are both back home, and you hear Kay laughing already from her side of the Atlantic. But we still have a lot of recordings to share with you from the Global Privacy Assembly, so that is going to be this episode. You'll hear from great guests. You'll hear from Eduardo Ustaran, from Shana Morgan, from Alexander White, and from Patricia Kasim in the course of this episode. All the interviews are self-explanatory, but we've had a lot of fun just grabbing people, sitting them down, and talking to them, didn't we, Kate?
Oh, we did. We really did. And they had fun being grabbed. They didn't know what it was for to begin with. And then they're like, oh, we're going to go to the recording booth. It was a table in the middle of the lunch area, but our recording booth was set up.
And then we could say, my name is Paul Breitbart.
And I'm Kay Royal. And welcome to Serious Privacy. So I love being back, being home. I finally have a quote on getting my house fixed, so that might start soon. And I'm not going to be a pauper when it's done. So yay. Looking at questions I'm trying to never, ever, ever repeat the unexpected question. So here we go. Would you rather, this is either or, I might start this series. Would you rather have every traffic light turn green or always have the best parking spot? Ooh.
I'll pick the traffic lights. I'm okay with walking a bit from my parking spot.
And I'll take the traffic light because the driving is what irritates me. When I get to the parking, if I don't feel good, I use the handicap parking because I'm disabled. If I do feel good, I love walking from the far distance of the parking lot.
I do have one precondition, though. It is only my traffic light that goes green, right? Not all of them around the square at the same time.
Oh, my gosh, right? That reminds me of the movie The Italian Job when they turned all the lights green and everybody careened into each other. So there we go. Every traffic light turned green. I probably drive a little faster than Paul does. But there we go.
I try to behave, yes.
You try?
I try. Usually I do.
I got my Mercedes AMG, which was a V8. Now, this was an old one, 2001. I realized that with that much power growling around me, I had no need to speed. All these little punk speedster could get up on me and gun their engines. And I'm like, yeah, go on. I could kick your butt if I wanted to. So I didn't need to speed to prove anything.
Well,
can y'all see Paul's expression right now? Yeah, right?
No, but my mind is actually with Janis Joplin. I don't know why, but I actually do know why. I was at a concert on Friday from a Dutch band, and they covered Leaving on a Jet Plane last year in Dutch, which, of course, originally is from John Denver, but I really liked the cover that Janis Joplin did. And we were hoping that they would play it on Friday. They didn't. So I've been listening to a bit of Janis Joplin over the weekend, including Lord, Won't You Give Me a Mercedes Benz. So when you talk about your Mercedes AMG, that's all what's in my mind. That's how my mind works.
And I'm thinking of the movie with the asteroids of Ben Affleck singing to Otter when they're all leaving to get on the rocket ship. I'm leaving on a jet plane.
On a jet plane. Don't know when I'll be back again.
And then in your head, you hear is it Ving Rhames? Man with his deep voice. Even on a jet. I don't know. I have to do the bass to go with it. And then you hear she. No, not Pesci. the guy that plays the crazy guy that comes in with this really high voice to add to it. It's like, anyway, this is not the Serious Privacy singing show. I promise you, neither is it America's Greatest Talent or Europe's Greatest
Or
Talent.
Europeans' greatest talent, exactly. So before we scare all our listeners away, let's just move to the recordings we made in Jersey, of course, together with Ralph.
Yes,
He also
it was a
joins us
fun,
for some of the interviews.
fun time. Really good information, too. Here we go.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's go back to Jersey.
So joining us now live in Jersey is Eduardo Ustaran. Welcome.
Thank you
Still
very
with
much.
Hogan Lovells, right?
That's right, yes. Hogan Lovells in London. But
And
nice
oh
to
my
be in
gosh,
Jersey.
I met you how long ago?
Oh, too long to be told publicly.
2013, over 10 years ago. You were still with Phil Fisher.
Yes, yeah.
You had just hired Phil Lee.
Yeah.
Oh my
The old days.
gosh.
So have you changed your practice from data protection to AI completely already, or is it still also some data transfers work?
It's in transition, I think. I think data protection is always evolving.
Yeah.
But there are milestones along the way, and I think we are hitting a big one at the moment with AI regulation.
Yeah. So what do you make of the new AI Act?
Well, I love it. Why wouldn't I?
We love the resources you put out on it.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's a good learning ground in terms of figuring out how to regulate a new technology and how this framework is going to work. But it really is a learning ground because it's a brand new piece of legislation that has never existed. And no matter how many years you've been involved in advising in privacy data protection, you've never been involved in advising on AI regulation as such.
Right. And then you get all the people that say, oh, AI has nothing to do with privacy. And then all the people going, well, AI is all about privacy rights.
I think, first of all, there is a lot of existing data protection law that is being applied very incisively, and I'm very decisively.
Well, that's how the UK is doing. I mean, the EU has the AI Act, but the UK is saying we're going to do it in existing legislation and let existing regulators do it.
I think there is room for both approaches in the sense that data protection law regulates the processing of personal data, and there is a lot of processing of personal data involved in developing and using AI.
Automated processing, no less.
Of course. And there is a lot of decision making that will only increase as AI use develops. Yeah. But of course, there are other risks beyond the use of data that AI potentially brings. And I think that's what the new regulation is trying to address.
Right.
So that's why I think there is a scope for both.
Well, technology is always going to exacerbate, isn't it? It's going to help the good in an extremely way, and it's going to disadvantage the bad in more extreme ways. All technology does is upscales the benefits and the harms, right?
Yeah, and I think the issue with more than how it is developed, more how algorithms are trained, which of course are a big issue at the moment.
Right.
AI, you need to look ahead. And I think AI, the transformation that AI is going to bring is all about our ability to make decisions.
Right.
And not just our ability to make decisions, but our likely direction of travel where we delegate decision making to AI.
I had not thought about it being a delegation, but you're right, it is.
Well, you could call it delegation, you could call it complete reliance. But essentially, in the same way that we rely on other machines to do our job for us, and we no longer have to run to places or go on horses. We just get into a machine and the machine.
And the machine drives us.
We drive cars, but maybe in the future we will not even get to drive them. But the point about AI and decision making is that as AI becomes more and more reliable and more pervasive, we will see how daily and sometimes the most crucial decisions that we made in our lives are, again, delegated to AI. And I think that is what is going to be truly transformational.
You know what comes to my mind? The ultimate matchmaker. because people do online dating and online meeting now, because who has time to do anything? And I met my husband online, and we met and married within 6 months, and that's 20 something years ago, before it was cool. But that's the ultimate matchmaker,
not
right?
before it was cool, when it still worked.
Before the algorithms got involved.
Maybe love is the only thing, without getting too philosophical, maybe love is the only thing that AI cannot replace.
Well, one of the first uses of AI, one of the first uses of any technology is in the sexual arena. And the AI girlfriend bot is certainly an area where it's already
went a
involved.
totally different
I'm not
direction.
sure that is love, as I understand. But no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But I think there will be more seriously, there will be decisions about our education, our job, health.
Right.
What is more important than our health? And again, AI technology will sort it all out.
I am feeling that right now.
So also joining us here this morning at the table is Shayna Morgan, who is an advocate for Indigenous rights.
You're the one I wanted to meet.
And spoke at the panel
Rebecca
yesterday.
Zosi is one of my friends. Oh, that's amazing. Yes. I knew you would know that.
Okay, I'm trying to make a bridge here.
You make your bridge, I'm making my connection.
Because I was trying to ask, how will AI help Indigenous people fight for their privacy rights?
Oh, yeah.
It's just an easy question in the morning, right?
Hit me before I even had my first cup of coffee. So how will it help them fight for their privacy rights? That's a very, very complicated question. And I think that you have to fight for the privacy rights within the uses of AI. So I'm not sure if it will itself help fight for the privacy rights. Somebody yesterday during our session asked a little bit about use cases of AI, and there's some amazing work being done in the AI arena. There's work being done on revitalizing Indigenous languages. There's work being done in the environmentalism area.
Capturing the history. I've heard there's a lot of work there too.
A lot of Indigenous knowledge being used to help climate change. The fear, and the rational fear, is, as I explained yesterday, there's a lack of control with Indigenous data by Indigenous peoples. So when you don't have that control and you don't already have in those privacy protections, you don't have those in place, you add in that AI element and it can become extra exploitative. There's just that entire extra risk now when it was already not great now. And there's a big fear of a recolonialization because of this use of data without consent or any kind of inappropriate use.
When I was doing work I've done some work out in Uganda recently, and one of the items on the agenda there was we don't want to enter into a digital slavery, which I thought was a very strong, sort of word to say from those sort of cultures and elements that, you don't want to, whilst globalization and harmonization is useful, you don't want the technology companies that are already so well established to almost cut off local distinctiveness and cultural traditions.
Yes. Well, and then that's a good bridge with the two of y'all, as I'm sitting right smack between the two of you, is the other big AI act is Colorado. And Colorado is smack in the middle of Indigenous populations with Arizona and California and all of that. So what do we think that the Colorado AI Act is going to bring? Wow.
Two blank faces.
I think from my perspective, there's a lot of good that these acts can bring. However, and not to sound like a broken record, until we actually implement some frameworks specific to Indigenous data concerns, because they are different. They are not the same. There's a collective dimension, first of all, that is entirely different with the way that tribes move and think. And there are certain things that are sensitive to tribes that are not defined as sensitive under current privacy law.
That is true.
So until we can address that, these acts, they're not going to protect these Indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
No.
And I thought that was one reason Colorado had passed it, was in light of that, because the Attorney General of Colorado is a lawyer, very up on privacy rights, very technical. But you're right, I'm Mississippi Choctaw. They don't own me because of the racism in the South. But I still claim it as my history. very much so, even DNA. Indigenous populations don't contribute to DNA. And so even if you do your 23andMe, it's very rarely going to show up Native American because we don't have that information because they're very private about their DNA, which, they should be.
And of course, that gets into the issue of how tribes define tribal citizenship. You know, we have some infamous people who I won't name on this podcast that have taken DNA tests and claimed to be members of certain tribes, which were not recognized. And it's really everything to me comes back to the concept of sovereignty. Yeah. And once that sovereignty is recognized, then we can actually start to protect Native Americans and other indigenous peoples globally.
Well, funny enough, back in Mississippi Choctaw, you only had to be 1/128th to be a member of the tribe if you could prove your heritage, not through DNA. Once they built their casino, you had to be 1/2. I couldn't prove my heritage anyway because when they married or had children outside the tribe, their records were completely eliminated.
Yeah.
You know, blood quantum is a very, very touchy issue because the only things that are measured by blood quantum are dogs, horses, and native peoples. And my tribe, we don't recognize blood quantum for that reason.
Oh,
we're human beings.
You're Cherokee, right?
I am Cherokee Nation.
Right?
Yes, thank you.
Same area of the country.
Our citizenship is defined by lineage. If we can prove direct lineage up to the Dawes rules, and I won't get into that explanation because people totally off topic on this podcast. But it is very important, and even that distinction right there. How does a tribe define their citizenship is up to them, and every other aspect changes based on these definitions.
A lot of people do ask, well, can't you just do DNA testing? No.
So, Eduardo, is this something that in the private sector companies are even aware of or taken into account, or that's being discussed that you know?
Well, I'm listening to this conversation and I'm trying to think what it really means in practice, as you say, for organizations, for companies. What I see, the positive side I see is that there has never been a greater awareness of diversity and inclusion. And I see this as an element of that. And often diversity is almost looked at it from the other way around, or inclusion, about how to ensure that we are more multicultural and all that, which of course is an aspect of this. But I think it's interesting because I am Basque, from the Basque country in northern Spain. So in a sense, if we could call that, it's an indigenous people, right?
It resonates with you.
Yeah. But I live in the UK. I live in the UK for many, many years. And on the one hand, like I am a beneficiary of multiculturalism and being able to go and explore the world and living in a country where I believe life can be prosperous and so on. But I'm also very proud of my own origin. And I think the question is how to ensure that we live in a world where we can benefit from both elements. Right. You know, that having a strong roots and protecting your origins and your culture and what you're feeling about life and what you contribute, what your people contribute to the world as a whole. But at the same time, being able to live beyond your boundaries and be able to go farther away. And I think, again, technology and AI perhaps can be a tool. Right. It's a tool for fairness. It can be a tool for, or at least if it's properly regulated, going back to the law, being a lawyer, that I would say that. But if a law is effective, whether it's the Colorado AI law or the EU AI, whatever comes next, if a law is effective, it should contribute to increasing fairness, which is part.
And I'll start there, because regulation enforcement is one thing, but the one thing that always concerns me with regulation enforcement is it's after the fact. Now, I've spent my career trying to get people to stop looking at data protection as a legal tick box compliance issue and start to design it into technology from the outset as a design strategy.
Privacy by design.
Well, data protection by design, but yeah, sure, fine.
Sorry.
But yeah, to make organizations take that leap, and I always say data protection by design, the first step is to understand your stakeholders. It's to consult with those stakeholders to understand what makes them vulnerable, what gives them specific needs, and to try and address those needs with good controls when you're creating your tools and platforms.
Right.
And I find that a lot of people just aren't having those conversations, just aren't getting the right people to the table, are looking at it as a tick box exercise after the fact rather than a design input.
Ralph, they don't even recognize that they're missing people at the table.
That's probably
that's the point. We talk in privacy about you have to take off the hat of whatever culture you were raised with and consider that other cultures think of things vastly different. And my example is always that Australia membership in a professional association is sensitive data, whereas we're all members of a bar. That's public data, but that would be that's true. Okay, finally, we're not all.
You
know who's sitting at the table.
Eduardo and Kay are members of a bar.
There we go.
Yeah.
And
I'm
so,
members of a bar, just a very different bar.
very different.
No, I stand at the bar. That's a different thing.
Well, and in Israel, personality is sensitive personal data.
Yes.
But you have to take off that whole, can you even consider it an implicit bias of what is personal data, what is private, what is sensitive, and even open your eyes and look around and see who you're missing at the table. Because as we're talking about, I hate to say U.S. indigenous populations because it's not U.S. One of my friends is Mohawk. They run from Canada down through the U.S. into Mexico. So how do they deal with three vastly different privacy frameworks that they're living within that doesn't directly apply to them because they're a sovereign nation? It starts getting very complicated.
Eduardo, Shana, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of the conference. Joining us now is Commissioner Alexander White of the beautiful island of Bermuda, host of the Global Privacy Assembly in 2023, and now here in Jersey with us, wearing a very stylish Bermuda. We were just discussing it before I hit record. Why wear a Bermuda to a conference?
Well, first of all, it's what I wear every day.
I was going to say, why not?
So this is what I wear to the office. And so, but also it helps people like you flag me down from across the room much more easily. People can see me coming a long way away.
They are staying at my hotel. This is how noticeable it is.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's great branding. And it really, I didn't even know that the word Bermudas was used for shorts in a lot of countries until after I started wearing them around.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard them called Bermuda shorts.
Yeah.
But not Bermudas. So
well, there are no Bermuda longs, so
I'm not talking to you.
Actually, it is nice, to come to a global event and see people in national dress as well and sharing their culture. We were just talking to people about the indigenous peoples and their culture as well. And, that's what it is. It's a real melting pot. I mean, what are you getting out of this event? I mean, you were the host last year, so have you recovered yet?
Yeah, it took me a few months, to be honest. It is so much work. And the team here in Jersey have done an amazing job.
Haven't they?
This is an absolutely spectacular venue. They've done a great program. I get so much out of all the panels. I'm not saying that just because I was on a panel, but all the panels have been really great. And, the indigenous one you talked about, that was really powerful yesterday.
So what's new in Bermuda? What are you working on?
So the hot item is we have a compliance deadline for the community on January 1st.
Oh, wow.
So our law is called PIPA, the Personal Information Protection Act. And this entire year we've been...
PIPA, not PIPA.
That's
not
right.
Not PIPA.
You say that. It is... This is a matter of intense debate in Bermuda.
Oh, it's an intense debate around the world.
Yeah. So my deflection is that I say I do not have the authority to enforce pronunciation.
Okay.
So
okay.
People can call it whatever they want as long as they comply.
There you go.
That deadline is coming up swiftly.
January 1st, yes. So this entire year, 2024, we've been doing weekly releases of specific guidance for the community because it's the very first data protection or privacy law for the community. So there's been a lot of educating people on what does it even mean to have a privacy program.
And does it apply to everybody? Government, private sector?
It does. Every organization in Bermuda.
Non-profits, for-profit,
That's
everything.
right.
That's
right.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
What are the major obstacles? Do you do registration or register processing activities or...
No, we don't have a registration requirement. So organizations have to have a privacy notice and they post who their privacy officer was. And that's how we'll get in touch with them as the regulator as well. So if we can't find your privacy notice in order
They are
to
in
get
trouble
in touch
immediately.
with you, then we've identified a problem right away.
Note to self, check Bermuda privacy notice.
But you've got a really interesting relationship with Jersey as well, because as I understand it, Jersey, Guernsey, Bermuda, Isle of Man, they kind of form this sort of island sort of subgroup.
BITPA.
Yeah.
Including Malta and Cyprus and Gibraltar, right? Gibraltar is not an island, but part of BITPA.
So it's the BITPA is the British, Irish, and Island Data Protection Authorities. And it's a relatively loose association. We tend to have one meeting every year that's hosted by one of the members, but there's a lot of informal ad hoc communication between.
Oh, nice.
And if you look at the jurisdictions you were just describing, you can see why, because we've got similar population size. Privacy issues are different for small communities than they are for big communities. It's just by the very nature, it's easier to recognize people or memorize someone's license plate. So we do run into those issues, but also the regulated entities, financial services. So there's a lot that we can share with one another.
That's fascinating. So, because we were talking with Paul, the Jersey commissioner earlier, and he was saying, there are some pretty unique challenges living on a small island. And you kind of forget that the community is only so large. You can't hide in the herd.
Oh, yeah.
So to speak. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's very true.
So what's been your highlight? What's been your highlight of the conference so far? What's been
Well, I always enjoy getting together with folks and learning what people are doing. With the panel we just got off the stage, was a great opportunity to talk about vulnerable populations.
That's right.
And I loved hearing the different commissioners talk about, well, here's how we were doing trauma training for our call center. Or here's how we do. Philippe Dufresne, and that was John Edwards that talked about the call center. And then Philippe Dufresne in Canada was saying in his previous work in human rights, they would do kind of a disability for a day program where someone would walk around the office blindfolded to experience what are some of the issues that you can run into. So fascinating stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. So what else is in store for you while you're here in Europe?
Well, I'm headed straight back to Bermuda because, again, we've got to get ready for January. So I'm going
It's only 3 months away. I mean, seriously?
It's only 2 months.
2 months.
Is it 2 months
it's
away?
Only 2 months.
It's Halloween tomorrow night, dear.
I know.
I'm so out of touch right now.
Yeah. So
I can't dress up. I'm like out of my norm.
So have the weekend to eat a lot of Jersey cheese and butter and then heading back.
Nice.
So what does enforcement look like? Because obviously, if people do step out of line in the coming year, you're going to have to take on a rather different role than an educational one.
That's right.
So how would you describe yourself? Light touch? Would you describe yourself as... I always ask regulators this question. So I think it's a really interesting what your regulatory approach is.
Well, I wouldn't say light touch, but what I would say is corrective.
Yeah.
And I think that's the appropriate mechanism, especially for a community that's in the stage that ours is right now. There's a lot of instances where people may be acting in good faith. They just have an incomplete knowledge of exactly what they're supposed to do. Or even the fact is that, as we all know, what might be a perfect privacy program on January 1st could be completely different because of a new technology that no one even knew about on January 2nd.
Right.
So I believe that it's perfectly fair to say organizations can act in good faith and still be imperfect.
Oh, absolutely. And that was the HIPAA approach. We were talking about it yesterday, that for the first 10, 20 years, more than that, their approach was helpful. We want to educate. We want to help doctors and hospitals come into compliance. And then in 2013, when high-tech was also passed, it became no, we're no longer here to help. We are here to punish. But that was from 1996 to 2013. So they took many years of helpful light touch approach. Now they slam down on nonprofit hospice centers in the middle of the Midwest. So, yeah.
So what should organizations fear for? I mean, Kay's organization needs to check compliance, you just mentioned.
Right.
So what kind of
organization was that again?
Yeah. Actually, we do have to. We are in the insurance business.
Okay.
And so we're not an insurance company. We're a claims processor. So we touch every type of data you could possibly imagine. And so, that is something that companies need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So what kind of sanctions should they fear for?
So our office does not directly apply sanctions. we can issue orders. And I would argue that an order is more powerful because
Agreed.
sometimes a non-compliance can be a cost of doing business.
Mhm.
But if I can order an organization to stop using personal information, that's going to have a much more significant impact on their
It's a book of
operation.
out of my leave, or leave out of my book.
Yeah, actually, it is very much more impactful. I was going to say, just remember, my name's Kay Royal. You like me. Something goes wrong. You like my company. No,
But that goes back to the point we were saying earlier. Nobody is perfect.
Nobody.
I think that this is an important, piling on when something goes wrong. Sometimes an organization can act in good faith. And in that case, it's the regulator's responsibility to inform the community that they actually did the right thing and got unlucky.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's always interesting, especially with things like security, for example, that, you can do everything right and still have a breach.
Right. You could spend the earth. You could spend all the money in the world. And
Nothing's perfect. Nothing's perfect. Something will slip through. But that was one thing with Paul coming from
what did I do?
coming from being a regulator and then joined a private company as the person over privacy. He all of a sudden flipped his viewpoint and saw it from the perspective of the company, which is huge. All these things regulators want us to do, and then you get on the company side, you're like, but I can't do that. HR's not listening to me. Marketing's not listening to me. Oh, wait, sales wants to do what? All the effort in the world, and you can't be perfect.
And that's one thing I try to keep in mind is because I was a privacy officer before I was a regulator. And so I think, how can I be the regulator that I would have wanted to help me out? And that's where things like our Road to PIPO was partially created to help our privacy officers. Because if you say, we have a deadline on January 1st, the business leaders are going to say, okay, get back to me in November.
Right.
So we were creating these weekly deadlines where people could go to their boss and say, I have to do this in February. I have to do this in March, even though it's a soft deadline.
Right.
So by the time this comes out, it will be November, giving people those final 6-7 weeks to get this done. So you better start looking at Bermuda compliance. Otherwise, Alex will come after you.
Yes.
Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. It's great to see y'all.
Oh,
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you. Very much.
We're very happy to be joined right now by the Data Protection Commissioner of Ontario, Canada, Patricia Kasim. Welcome very much.
Thank you so much for doing this.
It's the advantage of being at a privacy conference. We can just grab commissioners from everywhere and ask them to join us for a brief chat.
And not in the middle of an investigation, so it's even cooler.
That's right. That's right.
So what do you make of the conference so far?
Well, I think the GPA is a wonderful opportunity for data protection authorities from around the world to get together, to exchange ideas, best practices, to really talk about the issues of the day, emerging issues. But, as a DPA also, it's important for us to benchmark ourselves, right, against what's happening and what others are doing to make sure that we're still timely, we're relevant, we're focused on the right issues, and frankly, to be inspired by our colleagues and to hopefully share some of the stuff what we're doing with smaller jurisdictions, for instance, that are also looking to build their resources, their capacity, their efforts. So,
It's got to also be a way of being able to see something coming.
yes,
That maybe you haven't identified, but somebody else has it on the radar, and it's that way you're not taken by surprise.
absolutely. I mean, events like the Foresight event and Indigenous privacy.
Which obviously for Canada is a very important topic.
It's very important. We highlighted this as a topic at our federal, provincial, territorial commissioners meeting that Ontario just hosted in October. So we're having our own conversations about
Nice.
concepts of data sovereignty and community privacy. And so again, when we're having these conversations at home and we see them resonate at the global level, we know that they're, obviously amplifying. We've got our pulse on the right topics and right issues.
That's really beautiful, actually. I mean, I've done some work for Sioux Nation's healthcare up in Canada myself. And, one of the things they were talking about really struggling with is, because you've had the difference between PIPEDA and then you've had the new laws, the sort of new wave of laws coming in, Quebec Law 64 as it was, or Bill 64.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fair to say that in Canada, there's an evolution going on. So perhaps as a regulator, what level of involvement do you have with the sort of the next wave of upgrading Canada's sort of data protection rules?
Well, as you know, federally, there's been a bill on the books for 2 years now.
Yes.
On a dollar better
in
than
the U.S.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
That's right. Everything's relative. But this was in respect of enhancing HIPAA, making it stronger, updating, modernizing it, and also on artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But the best kept secret is that we have a bill being debated right now in Ontario called Bill 194. It touches cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, digital technologies aimed at children and youth in schools, and strengthen updated privacy protections.
Wow.
So it's happening very fast. So contrarily to, the development of legislation federally that's taken a long time, we almost have the reverse situation in Ontario that's developing extremely quickly. So
that sounds like a very important law also for all the work that your office is doing.
Yes.
And you are a fairly small team.
Yes, we're about 162.
Well,
So
that's still sizable for
it's reasonably sized, and
I know German authorities who would be jealous of that size.
right. That's another barometer. You come to a conference like this, and you realize that as a subnational, we're pretty well resourced,
Right.
And so we need to push forward. We need to do our job, and within the constraints that we have, but frankly, we're pretty lucky. So,
And I will say, because of Jan's activity in Canada, that the last hire I made and the next hire I hope to make for both the Canada. I run some privacy team for a global organization, even privacy and third-party risk management, which are not in the same thing. But I hired my director of TPRM, and I'm looking for my next privacy analyst or manager out of HIPAA.
Well, I think I'm biased, of course, but I think we have a deep capacity, expertise, and knowledge in Canada on privacy, data protection, and transparency issues. And so I'm not surprised because we have researchers, academics, we have practitioners. We're very lucky to have a deep community.
As well. I mean, let's not forget that the privacy by design principles came out of Ontario, in the late 90s. So with apologies, I missed your panel because we were recording the podcast. But for everybody else who was listening, do you mind speaking about your panel?
I'd love to speak about it. First of all, it was on privacy education from the ground up. How do we and what do we need to do today to make sure that we vest the next generation with the tools and the education they need to navigate their digital future? We started off with a presentation by Baroness Stephen Kidron, who's a member of the UK House of Lords, who gave us a very insightful and inspiring opening address on why this matters. And then we went to the CNIL, the Commissioner Bertrand Dumaret from CNIL, who gave us two perspectives. One as the chair of the Digital Education Working Group of the GPA, and gave us an overview of what DPAs had done and are doing to follow through on our commitments to two previous resolutions on children, one from 2016 and one from 2021. And so we had a good update on the Digital Education Working Group that's monitoring progress towards these commitments globally. And then he gave us of what's happening from the CNIL perspective. Then we went
which we know is very active.
From a large jurisdiction. Then we went to a smaller jurisdiction. We heard from Joyce Lai, Deputy Commissioner from Hong Kong, who told us about their 3E strategy, which is educate, engage, and empower kids.
Nice.
And I love the fact that, first of all, they do it in multiple languages, English, Cantonese, Mandarin. Right. And, literally, given their geographic size, the commissioner can go door to door, school to school, speaking to students.
That's fantastic.
They actually have a traveling truck.
Oh my goodness.
With a traveling exhibit of resources for children's. Of course, love it. I know. It's wonderful that, of course, you can't do that in a country like Canada. Right. Geographically, we're huge. But that was a nice perspective. Then we went
You need an RV.
Right.
Even then.
Right.
An RV and about dozen extra days every week.
Yeah, true.
And I met her yesterday. She's absolutely fantastic. Yes, she is. And then we heard Matthew Johnson, who's Director of Education with Media Smarts, which is a digital literacy organization in Canada that is dedicated to developing education and conducting research on how to promote digital literacy children in schools, including privacy and safety. Very, very interesting work that's built on literally decades, 20 years of qualitative research.
Right.
So we are very lucky in Canada to be educated by them to help us in turn educate others, founded on the knowledge that they have acquired through their research.
Wow.
And then we heard from Leanda Barrington-Pleach, who is the executive director of the Five Rights Foundation, and telling us about all the important work they do from an advocacy perspective in promoting and advocating for children's rights. And she ended her segment with a video of a young 13-year-old girl called Sky, who made a very compelling and persuasive plea on how important it is for us as DPAs to really keep her center of mind, her generation, to keep focused on the importance of including children in our work. And I had the occasion, if I may, just a couple of minutes, talk a little bit about the work we're doing in Ontario.
Yes, absolutely, because you are working with youth. And you are one of the only DPAs that are actively working with youth.
Yes.
It's so inspiring. And I mean, it just gives you all positive feels, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. We have a youth advisory council, permanent council of 10 members aged between 15 and 25. They are fantastic. They meet regularly with us. They give us advice. They give us guidance. They're our sounding board when we have developed, education materials or drafts. They review them and they tell us what works, what doesn't, how to improve it. And so it's fantastic. They also helped us with their guidance. We developed a youth ambassador kit, which is a presentation with slides, with speaking points, with presentation tips and discussion questions, like a whole kit that students can use in teaching their own peers about privacy. And so we're developing this ambassador program to get the word out peer-to-peer, which is, of course, much more convincing and persuasive when you hear from a peer than a teacher or someone like me. So
other regulators take notes. I mean, what an incredible program.
Yeah.
How do you select them?
Whoa, that's interesting. We did a public call. We also tapped school boards and for actions. And then we had a vetting process. We selected them based on, first of all, their basic knowledge. Although I must say their knowledge has improved from the experience working with us, but also diversity was key.
Yeah.
So we had diversity from a cultural, gender, and age perspective. So that was very important, Brian, making sure.
We were just talking about that earlier about it's very important to have the right people at the table, but you have to back up one step before that and realize who you need at the table.
Yes.
Because most of us overlook.
Yeah. They're amazing. I'm inspired by them. In fact, we had them come give a talk. We had a panel discussion at the FPT meeting, the Federal Provincial Territorial meeting we hosted in Ontario, as I mentioned earlier last month. And again, much like the one you moderated, Paul, we had a Q&A with them and engaged with other commissioners.
Wow.
And you know what I loved about it was how articulate, sophisticated, intelligent, convincing, persuasive, insightful they are. But not only that, one of the provincial commissioners came to me afterwards and thanked us. And we said, that was so inspiring. And it reminded me how important it is. And you know what? When I get back to the office, I'm going to make sure that we reinvigorate our priority on children and youth. Yeah. So that's the kind of impact, you want to have, is make sure that your DPAs, your colleagues are all focusing on this issue.
Right.
There's one other thing I wanted to mention. We did a digital privacy charter. It's a charter of commitments, 12 commitments of schools that aim to protect children, but equally empower them. So it's not all about overprotection. It's also about education and empowerment, as we talked about today. And so we've launched this digital privacy charter. We're actively recruiting now schools to adopt it and to sign on to it as a pledge.
Oh, wow.
And so we are in the active throes of seeking early signatories. And it's hard because you need those first few to set the leadership bar and to take the courage and have the courage to say, these are commitments that we are ready to make. In fact, I'd say 85 to 90% of the commitments are legal obligations. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And the rest is just common sense. So, but we just need a few to show the way. And I think like a snowball.
So I'm going to totally look up where my friend lives in Canada and see, because I know she's moved in the past few years, and see, because she's very active. She did an internship, I believe, with Ontario doing her PhD, but she's an American trained lawyer. She's from Kentucky. Her husband's from Canada. Well, I'm going to look up where she lives.
Well, she's in the school system or as a teacher, administrator, as a parent. Yeah. We need her to advocate in favor of having her kids' school sign on.
Oh, that's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Patricia, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with all the great work you're doing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up our recordings from Jersey.
It was a little longer than we like
Yes.
our podcast to be. Let's change that. It's a little longer than our listeners like our podcasts to be. But hopefully we worked in a ding-ding sound for y'all about halfway through to let y'all know if you need to take a break after 30, 35 minutes or so, this is where you are. But we also owe y'all a few podcasts, so hopefully this makes up for part of that. And Paul and I will also do a current week in privacy, and we'll release it the same week. That way y'all can start getting some of these extra episodes before the year ends.
Absolutely. So on that happy note, we'll wrap up another podcast. Find us on social media. Find us on LinkedIn. Join the conversation. You'll find us there under Serious Privacy. You'll all find us on Blue Sky under Serious Privacy.
I was about to ask, are we on Blue Sky yet?
We are on Blue Sky.
We're on Blue Sky.
And you'll find Kay on social media as Heart of Privacy, I believe still on X. And on LinkedIn, you'll find me as Europol B on everything. Whether it's Blue Sky or Mastodon or Instagram or wherever you want to find me, you'll find me under Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data, and get credible, cited answers based on NIMBY research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.